Welcome to episode number 208 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on friend of the pod, retired big leaguer and content creator Trevor May to talk about the Mariners offseason, take a look ahead to this upcoming season, and then discuss with Trevor, who really knows his stuff about this kind of topic, the CBA. He knows just about everything we want to know, and we did a little bit of a preview of what's to come there in a couple of years when the two sides sit down to talk about the collective bargaining agreement.
Your guys' reminder before we start the show, make sure you're downloading these episodes. If you're listening to the podcast, rate, review, 5 stars everywhere. It really does help us out. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, leave a comment, follow us everywhere on social media, on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube Shorts, all those at Marine Layer Pod where we're posting every day. And if you want to continue to support us and get more of us, go check out our Patreon. Just started it up. You can listen ad-free. And we're going to keep adding more elements to that Patreon as time goes on. Again, brand new, unveiled. If you want to support us, go check out our Patreon as well.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. 1-1 from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network, recording on Tuesday, February 4th. Recording this one a little bit farther in advance. A fantastic discussion coming up, though, with Trevor May. I will note, Lyle, before we jump into our conversation with Trevor May, I would like to let all of our listeners know, first of all, yes, I cannot emphasize enough, go check out our Patreon if that's something that might interest you. Listening to us ad-free, you can go find it over there. On top of that, we're really looking forward to some of the content that we can continue to provide you guys going forward, whether it be on the Patreon or whether it be on all of our social media channels or here on the free version of the podcast. Lyle, we're going to be on TV.
How about that? Woo!
Are you going to wear a tie?
No.
So we're going to be on Fox 13 Seattle tonight when this episode comes out from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. So look forward to it. Getting on there. Not sure if we'll be with Alyssa or Aaron on the Washington Sports Wrap, but we're planning on being on there talking a little bit of M's as they get to spring training this week.
Well, shout out to them. Shout out to them for letting us come on. I guess they're really, really scraping at the bottom of the barrel for some guests where they landed on the freaking Marine Layer pod. But jokes aside, yeah, this is cool. I don't know if I've ever really been on true standard news type TV before, but it'll be fun. It'll be different, and it's a chance to talk some ball with some people that we know, and hopefully you guys get a chance to watch.
So Channel 13 on your television. If you have antennas, you can also watch it. You don't need cable. Don't need streaming. All you need is an antenna to watch us. 7:30 to 8 o'clock on Channel 13, Fox 13 Seattle tonight. Really looking forward to it. Just like we love having Trevor May on.
Yeah. Last quick thing. I don't know if we're going to be on the full half hour. It may just be a segment, but that is when the show airs.
You'll want to watch the whole thing so you don't miss us.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, Trevor's great.
Trevor is great. And he had, we tweeted out a clip of his talking about the Mariners offseason where he was, very adamant on the F. You brought out the quote he had here on this podcast where he's like, well, you're building your offense. You want an identity. You want to be either, you want to either hit for a high average. You want to get on base at a high rate. You want to be fast. You want to hit for power. You need to pick one. They haven't picked one. Mm-hmm. So among all of those other things, we just had to, after that point, bring Trevor back on, recurring guest, to talk to him about the Mariners offseason. We talked to him a little bit about what Mariner fans could be optimistic about going into this upcoming season. And then, as I mentioned in the intro, Trevor knows his stuff about the CBA. He was the team representative for the CBA negotiations, if I have that right? I have that right. When he was with the Twins of the A's. Sometime later in his career,
that point of the lockout, it wasn't the A's. Now I'm going to look it up. It either would have been the Twins.
I think
or
it was
Mets.
the Twins. Would have been the Twins at that point, right? You can look it up. But anyways, he sat in on those CBA negotiations.
He was a Met. That's what I thought. He was a Met.
Okay. So, well, yeah, I wasn't okay. So I wasn't right. He is knows a lot about these CBA negotiations. Lyle and I have floated some ideas out there about the CBA and how it could affect the current Mariners timeline. So we had to ask Trevor about it, and he clearly knows his stuff about this.
Yeah. All right, let me clarify. He was with the Mets at the time of the lockout. Maybe he was the Twins representative. We could both be right. But
okay.
Point being, we know this is also something Trevor's really passionate about. I mean, we've spent time hanging out with Trevor, specifically at All-Star Week, which was awesome. And the guy is so much fun to talk baseball with on and off the airwaves. But we know this is a topic he's really passionate about, and you hear it in his voice when he's answering these questions. So we wanted to ask him a little bit about it. Look, I know it's not a fun topic, you guys. It's not fun for anybody. Unfortunately, the reality, especially with the way Rob Manfred and some of these greedy owners run their sport, that the two sides may be headed for a real clash of the Titans come 2027 in terms of CBA negotiations and a potential lockout. So we wanted to get Trevor's perspective on it. He's very, very much on the player's side, as are we. We get to hear his perspective on it. He provides and talks about some really intriguing things. And overall, yeah, really fun conversation.
We won't keep you guys any longer. Let's get you to that interview with Trevor May.
All right, we've got our friend Trevor May on with us. You can find him on Foul Territory. You can find him on his YouTube channel, Trevor May on YouTube, where he's doing Mayday Mondays and a bunch of cool YouTube content constantly. You can find him across social media. Trevor, you're a full year or so now into being a retired baseball player and a basically full-on baseball content creator. Has it lived up to the hype for you so far?
Yeah, it has. I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I've got to meet a bunch of new people. You guys are, part of that group. That's been awesome, and figure out how to navigate this world a little bit. So, yeah, a lot of fun stuff planned for this year. Hired some people and learning to kind of be a boss a little bit. So it's interesting. We're learning, and there's a lot to learn. It's become abundantly clear to me, especially this first month of the year. But I'm having a blast to get to talk about the things I like to talk about and kind of give my take. And I think that's where I want to be.
Can you spill any of the stuff you're gonna do this upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a lot of it's already out there. It's about getting it rolling. One big thing that I'm having a really good time doing is a podcast project, a show project that I've kind of had the idea for years now, and I wanted to finally get it going, where I sit down one-on-one with a current or former player or coach or someone in professional baseball, and just like hear their stories about when they were 12 all the way to now, and so people can listen to it, and kids can listen to it and know that there's a path, and we all came from different random places, middle of nowhere Indiana, middle of nowhere Washington, and eventually get there. So the dream's not really out of the reach for anybody that plays baseball anywhere. And it's been a blast. It's called Cutting the Diamond. You can get it anywhere you want. You listen to podcasts. And then, as you mentioned, Mayday. It was Mayday Monday. It's been rebranded to Mayday now. And we do that every Monday, 1 p.m. Pacific time to 3. And it's kind of a half scripted, half like live stream show. I'm trying to find what that means, because I think that they both have really great merits, and I've had a blast doing that too. So those were like those. I moved to a studio. I built a whole lighting setup and 2 camera setup and all kinds of stuff. So that's kind of what was the big rollout for me. And yeah, it's going to be a whole bunch of that, and then cut like little deep dive documentary style stuff for YouTube and all kinds of things coming out. So it's all going to be in those same channels. It's just going to be different types of stuff that I maybe haven't done in the past.
All right, one more time for people that want to check out your new podcast. It's called
Cut on the Diamond, everywhere you listen to pods.
Cut on the Diamond. And then off that, from now going full-time into baseball content since retiring, I know you've done it forever, but since really going full on with it, are there things you feel like you've learned in the first year that are either easier, harder, or both than what you were anticipating it to be?
Oh yeah, a little bit. I think I had an inkling on like how much work It is, and like how to be consistent. Like I've gone a couple months at a time, in the off seasons and stuff when I was playing, just really going heads down, and then I got kind of a break during the season, and so like building in your own breaks and figuring out when you're going to rest around the baseball season some more. It's funny that my life now revolves around the baseball season still, but figuring that out and like calming down sometimes, or just taking some time off, or just being okay, just like slowing the content down to a trickle for a bit. That's been the biggest thing, hardest thing for me. And also like how fickle monetization is on platforms. And I've got bones to pick with Twitch with how they just constantly are raising their prices. And we all know how Twitter has changed. We all know how Instagram works, and the TikTok ban going up and everyone being terrified because it was their income. And like, so if you want to do this and you want to do it outside of the, I guess the traditional methods, it's really hard. You can't be on just one platform. So figuring out how to like make this a viable business without, working 100 hours a week is still in the works. I think we're finding some good spots here, but yeah, those are the big things. Like it's limited. It's limited, and it's more limited than it used to be. I feel like, but there's still a lot of opportunity out there. So those are the big problems that I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Yeah, everything you're saying there, I think all of us in the creator community can echo that as we try to navigate and make some money and find some time for all this stuff. And it's certainly an adventure. But Trevor, speaking of making things hard, the Mariners make good PR and good off seasons hard, difficult. As we want to sort of transition to the baseball aspect of this, I saw we tweeted out the clip you had on your show, and you were talking about the Mariners' lack of moves this offseason. How would you describe what you felt watching them do what they did this offseason?
Yeah, it's confusing. So traditionally, I feel like there's a lot of things that are just randomly happening in sports that just don't make any sense. Lately, with the shout out to Luka. It's frustrating to watch for a couple reasons. One, when you fire your manager before the season ends, that is a signal that we understand that changes need to be made, and that we are underperforming. You don't fire a manager when you're happy with how things are going. So that's what that's supposed to do. But then if you go into an offseason where there's a lot of free agents available, and a lot of teams looking for starting pitching, so you don't have to go sign a bunch of guys, but you can just like use one or two of your prizes, because you have a 5-man rotation with a bunch of guys. You have tons of depth and development too. You go out there and you make a savvy move and grab a guy, a bat that you need with using that capital, and they just refuse to do it. So I was just like, when you do nothing after you fire your manager, it tells me almost like it was a little bit of a show, like just kind of a lip service move. There was no intention to change anything really. They just needed a scapegoat, and it couldn't be more abundantly clear when your two free agent signs are re-signing Jorge Polanco, who I'm still high on, and I think that he can make a resurgence. I understand why Mariners fans aren't as a whole. That makes a lot of sense. He would agree with you too. He's not happy with his production last year, and I don't think he was right. I think the surgery is an indicator of that. And I think there's better Jorge Polanco in the future. But he was on the team last year, so that's not really, anything moves the needle. And then you got a utility infielder who's in his mid-30s, and Donovan Solano. Like, he's a great player. I think he's a rock solid player, and if he's the 5th best player on a good team, like that's what you're looking for, because he's just not going to hurt you. But like, they're going to need more from him than I think he is going to capable of giving them. And that's going to be glaring in Seattle that it wouldn't be glaring on another team, like when he was on, the Mariners. Or not the Mariners, sorry, the Twins, for example, in 2023. So, and that's all you're going to do. And not only that, we're going to sign for Jorge Polanco and be like, you're our third baseman now. He's never played third base. Like, how are these the options? How are these the solutions to these pretty big glaring problems that we thought you knew, or you thought you saw, and then nothing really happens?
Yeah, so 2 things off of that. Number one, I think both TJ and I are believers in a Jorge Polanco bounce back. It was very clear the knee was bothering him last year, and a couple other things too. It's very clear that was a career low for him. Guys usually don't fall off at 30, 31 years old, especially when you've got the track record that he does. So we're in on that. But to your point about the additions, the additions thing is real. And Jerry Dipoto just talked the other day mentioning how, well, with our additions of Arozarena, Polanco, and Solano, a lot of people sat there scratching their heads thinking to themselves, Arozarena and Polanco are not additions. They were on the roster last year and you missed the playoffs. Like, Solano's an addition, but that was your only addition. So there's just not a lot of addition after you fire a manager like you talked about. And I think that's where the frustration and gripes of a lot of fans play in, if that's fair.
It is absolutely fair. And I understand how this falls on deaf ears after you say it enough. You know what? I think that, like, a guy's hurt all year who has been a big part of your team and then comes back to the All-Star break and you say, we're getting one of our guys back who we have written into our depth chart, has been there the whole time, he's just been hurt. That is a different situation. Including Randy Arozarena, and to like infer that he's going to play better next year, which he's still one of the most. Even last year when he struggled, his production when he was still clutch. He just wasn't doing much when he in the middle, and that's his MO. I'm high on Randy. I think Randy's going to be better this year too. How much better? I don't think, even if these guys play out of their minds, it's still not enough. Like, that's the point. Like, you're banking on guys being double what they were, and I think it's only fair to say, if we get 20% more, we're happy with an improvement. That's all you can really bank on with guys like that. And so to include two of the three guys, it's almost like it comes off sometimes as insulting your fans' intelligence, like they don't know or something, and like you see something that they don't. And I think that's the tone that he takes sometimes. And I don't even know if I don't think it's on purpose. I just think that's the way he is. But like, no, like, it's just that's not. They're not new. They're you didn't make the playoffs, and you kind of slowly did. You saw a team slowly catch up with you for 3 months, and there was nothing you could do about it. And that's the issue. There was no. It was. I hope that they help us out, as opposed to we can take control of our own destiny because we have bats. It felt like they were just trying to hold on, and that's how the lineup's built. Like, man, I really hope Cal hits a 3-run homer today. Like, that's really what it is. And we have Julio putting lots of pressure on himself, I don't blame that either. He's 24 years old and he's got making the most money on the team, and he wants, to excite people. So like, there's a lot of that. It's hard to look at the clubhouse and say, oh, they think that we're doing everything we can to be the best, that they're going to get what they need to be the best version of themselves. They have to be on the same page there. It doesn't feel like they are. So yeah, it sucks to see comments like that happen. But it just seems to be his MO.
How do they get Julio to put less pressure on himself?
Well, it's going to come with maturity. I mean, experience will help. And we see it every single year. I feel like he starts off and he's super pumped. And then over the year, like, he starts to get going and he finds it somewhere because he like settles in, and it's not just, he's not using pure energy to do it. I think he's always just played, and it's been energy. Just go out and be a kid, and the energy takes care of itself. But Major League Baseball, that only lasts so long, and the older you get, the more you learn how to kind of pull back when you need to. A guy who I think has developed who had a lot of that kind of spunky, bounce around energy, who is then now kind of settled in to be the consummate vet that kind of conserves his energy, is like J.B. Crawford operates that way, right? He runs when he needs to run. He jogs when he needs to jog. He goes hard for a ball when he needs to go hard for a ball. He knocks the ball down when he needs to, but he's like not going to make the dumb throw. Like, that kind of stuff. That's the Julio Rodriguez. Like, we're going to look at, he's going to like not try to throw everybody out at home, for example, because he still does. He makes the throw pretty much every single time. Goes for it. Like, Bryce Harper had to do this. He had to stop trying to throw everybody out, even though he's good at it. That's going to be something you notice with him. Like, he's just going to take his shots, take his shots, and he's going to do that at the plate as well. So I think every year you get closer to that. And I think that Cal Raleigh is he's also learning too. He's young. So like, those two guys are going to be your core for a while, hopefully, if Cal is signed to an extension. And I hope he is at some point. But, those two, he's just going to have to continue to learn and get some veteran presence in there. I think that the more veterans he's around, the better he'll get.
There's been so much negativity and frustration over what the Mariners have done this offseason to improve or really not improve the roster in ways that many would put it. But let's take the other side of this, because I'm curious to get your perspective on this. For the Mariners to have a good season, which I still think is possible, given everything that's gone on, I still think this is a competitive roster that if things fall the right way, can have a competitive season. So, from your point of view, what has to happen for the Mariners to be competitive and find some way into the playoffs this year?
Well, they're all going to have to stay healthy, which, there's not a lot. They can't really lose much, especially in the lineup. If they lost, if they lose Julio for any length of time or they lose Cal, God forbid, it's like they just can't lose one of those guys for more than, a single IL stint. Like, you just simply can't. And that is not a place you want to be. We'll use the Dodgers, for example. They could lose their entire team and still probably win that division. Yeah. That's how many guys they have. And depth is really important in this game because, like I said, the season's so long and you lose guys. So their production is very concentrated in 2 or 3 guys, and that is not a positive. So they need them to stay healthy. 2, they're going to need some help from the division. The Angels, by all accounts, seemed like they're getting better. The A's got better. Texas, you can't count on Marcus Semien and Corey Seager to have down years again. Like I would anticipate their track records too. When they're not having they don't have their best years. The next year is usually pretty good. So I feel like Texas might be the team to beat this time around. With starting pitching, they still have the best pitching though. The Mariners do. So they're going to need their pitching to carry them. And they're going to need their 3 guys who produce to score all the runs. And then we need one of the prospects to come up and be exciting. And now I don't know which one that is. I know that like Locklear is probably the closest to like playing a lot. We got some other guys who are getting closer who are in AA. And they have I believe they're ranked number 1 now in the prospects.
Keith Law out of it 1, yeah.
So maybe at this point, I'm like, let's rush them up. Like, just get them up there. Because you got to see what you got anyways. And you gotta take advantage of this group of young pitchers who are all going to start entering or getting deeper into ARB or going to free agency. We got Logan Gilbert's going to be more expensive. George Kirby's only going to get more expensive after this year. Matt Brash is going to be more expensive after this year. Like, all these guys are going to get more expensive. You have great pitching. So it's like when you have one side of the ball covered, you gotta take advantage of the other side.
Yeah.
But they need a young guy to come up and produce too. That's the third thing I would say.
So Cole Young's another name you can definitely throw in there because he seems to be the guy that the team views as the long-term solution at second base, and they think we'll see him at some point this year. So that could be a guy that definitely contributes. You just sparked a question though, while we're going through the AL West here and talking about the teams that have improved. Are the A's going to be frisky this year? The way they hit in the second half of last year, there's a part of me that thinks I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to win 90-plus games, but I feel like there's a world they could be a frisky team this year.
They always are. Like, you can't really keep them down for too long. There's a certain vibe that, like, the guys just they're a good, close group of guys. And now I think they got their young core that's now growing together with Brent Rooker just blossoming into being a top 5 hitter. Like, he is production-wise, one of the best bats you could get, and he's underrated in a lot of ways. And him anchoring that, him staying healthy, and then Lawrence Butler being what he was last year was ridiculous. We even had some of the other guys take steps back, but like they all get good at the same time. It's all she wrote. So I'm excited to see Shea Langoliers continue to hit bombs. I mean, I think he got to 30, maybe hit 29. 30 home runs is production as a catcher. And he is, I think, really underrated as well. And if he keeps getting better with another year under his belt. So they're going to hit. It's just going to be, what are we going to get out of the pitching? Like what Luis Severino they're going to have. They just can't compete with the Mariners with pitching. You just can't. Mm-hmm. So, but their lineup is going to be dangerous. It's going to be one of those ones, if you don't take them serious, they're going to drop 10 on you. And you're going to be not feeling great about it. But we'll see how the vibe changes. The Coliseum had a lot to do with this. It is daunting to play in that park against them. Mm-hmm. It's funny. A lot of people talk about, oh, this place stinks and like it's old and whatever. But like the home team has an advantage. It's a tough place. It's just so much different than everywhere else. It's a tough place to get used to. So it's gonna be interesting to see how more of a normal park in Sacramento plays for them, and with the smaller crowd and all that kind of stuff, if that's a benefit for them or not. So I'm gonna be paying attention to that. But yeah, I wouldn't count them out either. And same with the Angels. I just wouldn't. I think their young guys are. I think Neto and Shanwell and Hoppy are legit guys, and you can't write them off. You can't write them off.
To switch subjects here, Trevor, before we to make sure we get this in. So Lyle and I are a little paranoid about this upcoming lockout and how it's going to affect the Mariners. And let me lay out what exactly Lyle and I are concerned about as they head forward for these next 2 years before the CBA expires. So the Mariners are obviously trying to sign their guys to long-term extensions, and they have a clock on some of these guys, which would be nearing its end of team control right around when we would assume a lockout will happen after the 2026 season. Is there a chance, by the way, you would think that a team would operate with if they were unable to sign these guys to an extension before that period, where they could move their trade window to trade one of their core pieces before that happens?
That is a strategic move that they could do. But I don't think we have enough information about what the CBA negotiation is going to look like yet. The next 2 years will be very telling, as well. Kind of in the media, you'll start to notice like a laundry list, but both sides are kind of putting out there, and they both start to drop hints about the things they care about and things they want to address. The deferment thing is going to be interesting to see where they line up, because I think both sides are kind of interested in addressing that. Because to be honest, the Dodgers doing it all the time is good, but deferments in general just aren't great for players. They're not. They're better for the teams. They help the teams out a lot more. So, but the teams really don't want it. Most of the owners don't want it. So because they're not doing it. And so it's interesting because both of them don't really like it that much, and only a couple do. So we'll see where they line up there, and I think that's gonna tell us a lot about how those things are gonna go. So, but if they anticipate it being kind of a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a work stoppage or there's going to be games missed, then I would not put that past the ownership and Jerry to do, because that's the type of premeditated thinking that they take pride in. But I don't think it'll just be, again, it'll just be like, let's hold pat where we are. We're happy with how things are. And that wouldn't be great. I hope they don't, but I think we need to wait and see where we come down and how serious this salary cap conversation is, because we're seeing, for the first time in a long time, we're hearing some owners blatantly say the term salary cap and how they want it, like just saying it. Usually they dance around it. They try to make it seem like it's something that it isn't. And we just had, he's a new guy, so we'll give him a minute. But Rubenstein over in Baltimore just saying that was eye-opening, and if that's something he pushes really hard for, it's gonna be a fight, because that's just they just don't go to the table for that. It's just like a non-starter. Both sides usually non-starter. They're not gonna get rid of Arb, and they got to get rid of Arb to get a salary cap. That's just the only way it'll happen. So if that happens, though, we are having a work stoppage, because that's a messy topic, and it's gonna take a long time to figure it out.
If they have a work stoppage, does that count as service time for players?
No.
Okay.
That's one of the levers they pull, and they say, well, none of you are going to get it paid, and you're not going to progress your careers. And that was a big reason that last time the kind of blindside 26-4 let's go vote happened, is because a lot of guys were like, I just want my money, I just want my time, I don't really care. I mean, I know there's more nuance for a lot of guys, but most of the guys that made those votes just were thinking about themselves and their career. And I understand that, but it takes some foresight in these situations. And unfortunately, that doesn't make me feel super hopeful for the next time it comes around, that they're not going to do the same thing and just give in, just because they want to get their 1 year, get to their bonuses or whatever, and then, but long term, it's just going to hurt their careers. So I hope not. But yeah, that's definitely not something they'll get. That's the first thing that comes off the table. Hey, by the way, you guys get nothing while this is happening.
So that sparks the question of, let me throw this scenario at you. The owners, who obviously are not worried about their own money for the most part, I mean, they are, but not to the level that the players are, say, implement a salary cap Otherwise, we are perfectly content missing the 2027 season. If you're players and the players union, what do you respond to that with?
Okay.
So you think players are okay with it?
No, I don't think players are okay with it, but they need to be. Like that's what you have to be willing to do. That's your ace in the hole. That is if anyone knows anything about unions and contract negotiations in any industry, that is your ace. Because at the end of the day, what you are saying to the people that pay you is this thing doesn't actually work without us. Like you guys can't have baseball teams if there's no one playing baseball. So you want to threaten us by taking away our ability to game because you have a monopoly exemption, because they do. They have that with the government as well. Like they have all these things that make this possible for them to do and put pressure on. And you say, well, if no one plays, good luck getting some scabs and how that works out for you long term, because we've seen how it's happened in the past and it did not go well. 93 was not a fun time for anybody. And there will be players that that are in a union but anti-union. Those exist. They exist everywhere, but they exist. And you have to kind of just hold pat and say, at the end of the day, this is our highest leverage. And we came to that point where we had to make that decision. Are we going to miss some games? Are we going to play our last card? We thought we were going to. A lot of us did. I thought we did. Our team did too. We voted no. The other 26 teams were not willing to do that. So, and that's when you get your thing. That's when you get your stuff. That's when big things shift. 93, that's when the biggest shifts happened, when the games started to get missed. Because no matter what they say, that they can hold pat forever, they just made $12.1 million in revenue, $1 billion in revenue, which is a record. And that is something they don't want to lose out on. So they're making hand over fist, money hand over fist. It's happening. So you have to say, okay, sure, we won't get paid, but neither will you. And you guys seem to care about money a lot more than we do. So yeah, that's just how it works. That's how negotiations work. We live in a time where financial insecurity it's really scary, even for people who make millions of dollars. And I hope it doesn't come to that, but it might. We've lived through it already.
Last question for me, Trevor. When we talk about a cap, I assume that automatically means a floor is in that discussion too, right?
Yes. I mean, there's no world where a cap happened and they got to keep ARB and no floor. Like there would have to be a crazy good floor, I think, to not touch ARB. I really don't think it's even possible without touching ARB. You just have to touch ARB. But yes, the floor is also a floor is kind of the point of a cap is that whole like creative or competitive balance facade a little bit, and you can't tell that story without a floor. So and that can be used as leverage for the teams like Oakland and stuff, where you say, hey, the floor is going to be higher than what you've paid people the line of the last 10 years. And the revenue sharing, that would probably be asked for. We've got to change that big time, so these teams don't get near as much money in revenue sharing. So they have to actually like participate in the cap system. And that would have to be really strict and really impactful in order for this to even be possible. But again, it comes down to control. Six years of control of a player is too long to have a cap, but I believe the floor would be included. And the conversation the first word won't even be said unless the floor is insinuated to be a part of it.
Here's the last one I've got for you before we wrap this up. Is there any chance they could start negotiating on these things now or some point within the next year and a half, 2 years before it gets to the point of a work stoppage? Or is a lockout going to be a business ploy again by the owners to try to put pressure on the players?
There's no incentive for the team for the group of people that hold power to start negotiations early. There's just none, because time is their best weapon. Like just look at how they wield that against Boris's clients at the end of the offseason every year. Like the players will crack because they have to play. And the longer you wait, the more likely it is that you'll have a down year. And they use that, they wield it like a club. But it's just the way it is. Like that's just part of it. There's nothing you can do really about that. I don't think that even can be addressed. So the owners wouldn't come to the table. But trust me, like the PA, like these conversations are just like they're being tacked on to other conversations the whole time. Like like there's back channeling happen. They just like have a, hey, what do we think about this? What, just so they know like where can we start? Can we get a starting point so we don't hit a brick wall immediately? And so this thing doesn't turn into a big mess. And that's kind of what happened last time. Rob just pulled the e-brake just out of the gate in order to immediately put pressure on our side. Just the hardest pressure ever. We saw it. We knew. We didn't think it was going to happen like that. We thought we were going to have to strike probably. We were ready to do that, and for them to preemptively lock us out shows that they thought we were going to as well. So I don't know if lockout would happen again because I think that they would like us to have to strike, so they can then it's just additional blame you can put on players, and it gives you more ammo. So, but they've done it before. Why would they not do it again? It worked. It worked. It did. So I think that something's gonna happen or a threat's gonna happen right out the gate. Though we're not. This isn't gonna be like sunshine and daisies. It's not.
Well, we know you're passionate about this stuff, which is why we wanted to pick your brain about it. And I'm sure you just gave fans some real insight into what this could all look like and the incentives behind both sides to doing what they're doing. So, yeah, this stuff's coming up faster than people think. So I think it's time people start doing their homework on it and start learning up about it. Trevor, You're the best. As always, love talking to you. Appreciate the time. And always look forward to talking ball with you.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with Trevor. We certainly did and always do. He is the best. Let's take a pause here. We're going to talk to you guys about our friends over at Pagotcha's Pub 85. That's over in Kirkland. You guys want to have an awesome time with your friends, go watch some sporting events. Now March Madness is coming up, you guys. There's 20 TVs in that place. So if you want a spot to go watch college basketball or events like that, head over there. You can play darts, you can play pool with some awesome food, and drink specials, they're about as good as you'll get. Their happy hour deals, you guys, are $3 and $4 drinks. It's from 2 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So long happy hours with awesome deals and an awesome time with your friends. All of that is over at Pagotcha's Pub 85 in Kirkland. All right, so what did we take away with Trevor here for a minute or two as we recap this thing? By the way, we're just getting back from D.C., which is why TJ mentioned at the start of the episode we're recording this a little early. We wanted to make sure we have something out on time and as scheduled, so we do. But as we're just getting back here and we're recapping this episode, what did you take away from our talk with Trevor?
I kind of want to focus on all this CBA stuff because that's really the interesting part. We've spent the entire offseason talking about the Mariners. Mm-hmm. So
hey, he was still interesting talking about the Mariners.
I know, but I know it's a Mariners podcast, but I find the CBA stuff very interesting. And let's start off with how it relates to the Mariners in probably the only positive aspect of the CBA discussion we had, which is that Lyle and I had floated out the idea earlier. We weren't sure if the owners lock the players out and they have a stoppage and don't play a 2027 season, does that count as a year of service time for Mariners players that would be their last year of control? I'm mostly focusing on Logan Gilbert.
And Cal Raleigh.
The answer to that...
And Cal Raleigh.
The answer to that question is no. Would not count as their service time. So if you could somehow spin that into a positive, they would technically be under control for the Mariners for another season. That wouldn't make Logan or Cal very happy, I'll tell you that much. They don't want to wait another year to go to free agency as they get older and lose negotiating leverage. Man, also crappy time for them because of what it seems like, as Trevor talked about, with a salary cap, their ability to go get market value will be significantly decreased, which stinks for them. But man, that just seems like something that's going to happen at this point. It really does seem like they are heading towards a salary cap in Major League Baseball.
Well, how about this? Let's hope the entire 2027 season isn't missed, which is a ridiculous idea in itself. Thanks a lot, Rob Manfred and the owners. But if that were to happen, yeah, that would suck. However, if they figure it out and play at least half a season, then these players are not affected by their service time clocks.
Troubling. A couple of the troubling notes of this, of what Trevor floated out there. So you don't normally hear them talk about key issues this early, at least regarding a salary cap. Usually, owners will talk around a salary cap because they like not having a salary floor either. It gives them a little bit more flexibility, and the owners who like spending don't have to worry about running into a cap. But he was mentioning there are already owners talking about the salary cap. this far out. It's kind of suspect, which means that will be on the top of the owners' minds when they sit down at the table to negotiate this next CBA. And what were the exact words he used for what the players are going to react when they see that? Non-starter.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very positive.
No, not at all. Although I think what Trevor's essentially saying by saying non-starter is not all players felt like this, because clearly guys voted to get back and play baseball the last time the CBA negotiations ended in 2022 when the vote was 26-4, like Trevor talked about. But Trevor said his team voted no. And I think what Trevor's insinuating that he's passionate about is, look, I get that it sucks and I get you don't want to lose money, but you have a chance to set this sport for the right for everybody that comes after you and the rest of your playing career. Don't give in to these ridiculous things that these owners are asking for. Let's get it right for us players and make sure this thing is in place for the long haul. It sounds like to me that is what Trevor is saying. And I understand that. I understand from both sides why players don't want to lose money, but also why guys may be willing to hold out to say, look, we're not going to give in to these owners. We're not going to give in to Rob Manfred. We need to fight for our own rights.
Mm-hmm. Other takeaways? Yeah, I mean, that's the big one. We're just waiting.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of waiting, which I don't like. I don't like the fact that when we threw out the idea of, can't they just start negotiating now? He's like, oh, there's no chance that's going to happen.
Yeah, why give up leverage?
Which that's not a great sign either.
No.
If you want one Mariners takeaway, the same way I have been, the same way you've been, he seems to be fairly high and confident on Jorge Polanco, which is good. He said, I think he really was banged up last year. And Trevor said, look, I think there's a real world he can bounce back, hit a lot better. And he said it too. He's like, look, Polo knows he didn't have a great year and he's motivated and he wants, and he's driven to bounce back and really get back to his old self, which that'd be great. And Trevor and Polo were teammates. They know each other well. Like, they played together. And I think Trevor's right that, like, there's very, very much reason to buy into a Jorge Polanco bounce back. So let's hope he's right. And let's hope we're right.
And that lines right up with your mailbag question answer last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Which Mariner would be the most impactful or one that you would predict to bounce back? You said Polo, so did Trevor May. Most of the question surrounds that as if he's able to handle third base.
Right.
I'd say the overarching theme of Trevor is, despite all the disappointment in the offseason, we all understand that this is a talented baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
Now I just got to go out and win. And much like Polo, some of the rest of the guys on this roster can't have bad years again. Bad years happen. Can you avoid having multiple bad years going forward into this upcoming season? That's going to be big.
No doubt. All right. That just about wraps up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. A reminder, we didn't say it at the start of the show, so we're going to say it now. We're going to keep hammering home this announcement. Thursday, February 20th, Moss Bay Hall in Kirkland, 6 p.m. Mark your calendars, guys. It's our first ever live show, and we cannot wait for it. We're fired up for it. We've got trivia planned. We've got Q&A planned. We might have a guest. There's going to be awesome food. The smash burgers at Moss Bay Hall, so good. That alone should be enough of a reason to get into the door. And then you can also listen to us and talk to us as well. And it's free to get in. February 20th, 6 p.m., Moss Bay Hall in Kirkland. Come check it out. It's really going to be a blast. Additionally, you want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure to download. Make sure to rate and review. 5 stars, pretty please. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. It's free, guys. It's right in front of you. Just like getting into the door of our live event, hitting the subscribe button. It's free. It's easy. It's right there. Just click it. On social media, follow us everywhere. Posting content every day at Marine Layer Pod. And check out our Patreon, which we just jump-started. Get on over there. We're going to be doing a bunch of awesome content as time goes on. Get started now. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.